Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be working on the Ninebot, and as you know from one of the last videos that we just picked this thing up and it rips. But you know that we're also doing like a small build on it. So the first thing we're going to actually do is a front wheel go-kart tire conversion. Basically what we have here is the stock tire. And I use this end, which is 3/4 inch to get this nut off. You can also do like a 19 mil. It has a washer, and then the wheel just comes off and you're left with this spindle right here. In order for this conversion, you need certain bearings to match the size of the spindle and the wheel that you're going to run. Okay, so these are actually the bearings that I'm going to be running. PGN. Here is the part number if you're curious. You can get them on Amazon. I'll actually leave the link for these down below. These fit perfectly into the wheels I got for them. I got like a pack of these wheels off of OfferUp for a decent deal, and the bearings were too big, like inner diameter. So I'm going to slide these in. They fit perfect outer diameter for this the hub that we have on here. Talking about these wheels a little that I have for it a little bit. These wheels are 10 by 4.5 by 5, so 5-inch rim. I actually have one of these wheels thrown on already on the other side, and it is almost a perfect fit onto the spindle. There's just like a slight, like I'm gonna go get a washer because there's ever so slight movement back and forth. So I pushed out the cart enough to steer it and show you guys that when you try to turn, it hits ever so slightly. The way that the stock steering works, when you turn your wheel all the way left, the left spindle turns more than the right, because as you see, it like when it turns so far that it retracts the distance that this one turns, because it can't push it anymore. So it kind of locks there, but it just locks enough. You're just able to turn it enough with a little bit of force, but you're going to be rubbing here. So with this size tire, the 10 by 4.5 by 5, you're going to be rubbing a little bit. For me, that's not a big deal. I'm going to modify it. That's what I do. I modify these things to drive the way I want. But for someone who's looking for a go-kart tire straight out of the box bolt-on option, these tires are just a little too big, even though they look insanely sick on this thing. Now these tires are taller than the stock tires, so it adds some height, which is possible to hinder the performance of the go-kart, since the Go-Kart Pro is actually meant to have lower center of gravity. So that's something we're actually going to test really soon, is how the bigger tires perform. Personally, I feel like it's going to add more grip, but it's going to be not as low center of gravity, but it also adds a wider track width. The center of gravity up front isn't lower. It could honestly drift insane once I clear the material from the front bumper, which, you know, like you can replace all those parts if I decide to go back or resell it or whatever. It's not the end of the world, but personally I would like to drive it with these tires for performance reasons and for looks and all that kind of stuff. It's just my personal opinion though. By the way, we will get to a rear install at some point. Right now we're just working on the front and showing you guys how it works in terms of the spindles, the length and capabilities of the front end of this thing so far. Because nobody's done this. This is a test run for a lot of things, and we're honestly experimenting to see what the capabilities of future upgrades are for this thing and what kind of aftermarket support there could be in the future. So we're kind of paving that path by testing different tire sizes, spindle lengths, bearings, and front end clearances and all that kind of stuff. And then of course how it's going to perform. So currently I have the old bearings out of the second wheel. I'm going to put the new ones in, put the second wheel on. So I'm going to measure out the spindle length for you guys. So it's looking like just under 2 inches, 2.5 to the end of the bolt. And then the dimensions for these bearings on the screen. New bearings are in. Welcome back. So as you can see, when it goes back, has plenty of clearance, so there's no concern there. But as you can see, the offset of the tires, this one, because of the angle of the tie rods, it kicks it back this direction, which makes it more vertical, and this one more horizontal, which can be really good for drifting. So it'll benefit us a lot when we do make the switch over. This actually helps us because it limits how far the tire goes so that we have to trim less. If this wheel was to turn the same amount of angle as this one, we would be trimming a lot more as far as the front. The thing that's nice is all these parts are replaceable. I feel like the prices for them are pretty fair. They're not too expensive, but you also don't want to be, purchasing new parts all the time and putting more money into these than you have to, right? So this tire is deflated. So as you can see, there's some give in the tire. It's getting pinched right now by the body panels. What's gonna be nice once we put on these legit go-kart tires is it's gonna add a lot more grip. The thing about these stock tires is you can't inflate them, and there's a lot of give when you go on corners. So these are gonna add a lot more stability and have a lot more toughness around the corners. So when you do a weight transfer and try to initiate a drift, it's really gonna hold its own, and that rear end is really gonna kick out a lot more than the stock tires would allow it to. At least that's what we're hoping for, right? So we need to wear out these rear tires because we're also gonna put go-kart tires on the rear to make sure there's gonna be enough ground clearance, and we don't want two interfering tractions there. Also, I'd like to mention, if you guys are not aware, we just wrapped up the build on our Razor ground force drifter. This is a 60 volt converted rear axle flip, different seat, PVC, legit go-kart tire, modified go-kart that rips. But if you guys are curious about this build, I'll leave a link in the corner for you guys to go ahead and follow that, because we're just breaking ground with it and starting to really dial in this thing as a legit drift go-kart. After a good amount of grinding later, here's the result. So as you can see, we just have enough clearance, and because the wheel is at an angle, that's kind of how I did the cut, was more at an angle instead of straight on, so it's super flush with the tire, and yeah, it'll be perfect. Perfectly spins, no big deal. And now we're just going to rope plate the other side, and then I'll just show you guys the final results once I cut the plastic piece, and then we go test it. Boom. It's Ninebot GoKart time, baby. Ninebot GoKart time. Ninebot GoKart time. Time to ride the Ninebot GoKart. So we just finished the front end conversion on this thing. She's ready to rip. I did trim both sides of the bumper so it'll perfectly clear. Still have to paint them.